That's gonna be... Look at that, mate. Look at fucking that. In case you can't hear me, that will pick it up, I think. Right? Other disclaimer, don't trust me when I say anything, right? I don't know what I'm saying. I have not heavily researched this as much as anyone should have. I think I'll be covering, 2 topics? And even like a subsection in those topics, people spend few years researching on. I'm not doing all that, am I? What else? If I were to explain something that's really, really fingled, there may or may not be a link that you can find in the description or something that has a better explanation. So something involving like visual or animation thingies. Anyways, I recommend you listen to this 2 times speed, because this takes really, really long. And the reason I'm doing this is my hair's gonna get raped tonight, and if I wait for it to grow back, that'll be past my birthday, and I would not be able to brag that I have done this 1 year before, even though arbitrarily the years don't matter. Whatever. Anyways, fingle me silly. Topic 1. Can you see that? That one's topic 2. Do I have something else? Oh, the definition thing. Ooh. Why do I need this? Oh, whatever. If I were to be talking about consciousness, right? Need to define it. We all know what consciousness is. I know you do, mate. It's the state of being aware, right? If you're aware, just for example, you go to sleep, you're unconscious, right? You get knocked out, you're unconscious. When you're sleeping, do you experience anything? Just forget about dreams, right? When you're sleeping, do you experience anything? No. You teleport from night to day, or from day to night if you're a silly person. We all know what consciousness is. There is another explanation of consciousness, however, by this one philosopher. I don't know his name. Her. She could have been trans. They said, consciousness is what it's like to be something, right? But that's not really a good definition. That's more of a definition of qualia, if you think about it. But what is qualia, right? What qualia is the subjective experience of someone. Subjective experience. Think of it as a lens to objective experience. In order to view objective experience in your subjective experience, you need to have your subjective experience lens. And all you're seeing is stuff through the lens. You can never see objective reality. For a good example is poetry, Shakespeare. I could read Shakespeare and say, this is some pseudo-profound bullshit that Darman could have written better, something or other. That guy would say, the first time I touched the novel, the epic that is the Tempest, my mind was filled with immense wonder, something or other. I felt deep emotional connection to this story, right? Why do we experience the same words differently, right? Is there an objective way to experience those words? Well, you could say, Shakespeare is the objective, his own interpretation of his own works. That must be the objective interpretation. No. what I'm trying to say is the objective is the words. The words are objective. The interpretation is subjective. So literally, those are just words with their own definitions, right? How could you string up all of these different definitions and you suddenly feel like, what, sad? Because when you read them, that's the sadness. Your interpretation is just subjective and it's qualia, blah, blah, blah. You get the gist. What is here? What am I gonna say? Oh yeah. Why did I say what it is like to be something? And that's kind of like qualia. Well, it's because, think about it. No, I'm kidding. What am I talking about? What it is like to be a bat? There is, I think, Thomas Nagel or something wrote an essay, what it is like to be a bat. And it says, if you were a scientist and you know every neuroscience thing about being a bat, that you know all of the biological things about bats, would you know what it's like to be a bat? General consensus is no, because you are not a bat. You would not experience what it's like to be a bat, because your mind is in your head. That experience is qualia. Because even though you know all of these physical things about the bat, these objective things, you wouldn't know what it's like to subjectively feel what it's like to feel like a bat, right? Similar to Mary's room. The Mary's room example. Mary knows everything about color. However, she's in a room all her life, a colorless room. Apparently she's also like not colored, so probably white, and she has just never seen color, and she's gonna be, she knows everything about color, right? But one day she's like, I know everything. She steps outside the room, she sees color for the first time, right? Does she learn something new? The general consensus is yes, she learned what it's like to actually experience color. Or you could say, because experience is subjective for everyone, she didn't really learn anything. She probably just gained new information, whatever. But general consensus is something new. This is a new thing. What could this mean? What could this imply? This could imply both the bat example and the Mary example. This could imply that because of the existence of qualia, right, the mind and the body are separate, because even if you know everything about how the body works, you wouldn't know how the mind feels, right? Are we still on qualia? Yes. Can you have subjective interpretation without the objective? Kind of, I guess. When you're dreaming, you're not, nothing's actually coming in, right? Nothing's coming in. How? But you still dream, right? The lens isn't, you're not viewing anything through a lens. So what are you viewing? They say like dreams are like reflecting on what you did that day. And I guess I've remembered some of my dreams, right? After they happen, I can like point out exactly why that happened, and I can like connect that to something that happened earlier that day. But that's only one dream. The other dreams are kind of silly. Something selling balloons in a prison. Anyways, what am I on about? Subjective without objective. that subjective lens is placed upon a... Okay, you could say, oh, so does that mean you can have subjective without objective? I don't think so, because if you... Okay, what does a blind person see when they dream? Nothing. What does someone without any objective data dream about? Nothing. They can't have any subjective experience if they've never had previous objective experience. Alright? Can someone have objective experience without subjective experience? Say, well, obviously, right? I could be moving about in bed, instinctually, when you're like falling asleep, you suddenly jolt awake. That's because some monkey evolutionary instincts. When you're about to fall off a branch, you get jolted awake, so you're probably like sleeping in a weird position. These instinctual things that you don't control consciously, that must be the objective without the subjective. Not really, right? There's really a better example, and it's blind sight. So, how do I do this? Do I need to... Okay. The eye connects to the brain. The brain. Inside the brain, just pretend the mind is a different thing for now, right? The mind interprets it through this lens. Okay? This is how everyone sees. Oh, can you see that? What is this? Right? Okay, so usually when someone is blind, the eye gets stabbed or something. If the eye gets stabbed, there's no data to the brain, and your mind can't interpret the data, so you wouldn't see anything. However, if you get rid of the lens, you could just do that to the brain, you just get rid of the lens, the eye is still giving data to the brain, but your mind isn't gonna be able to interpret it. So you are just blind. If you were that person without a lens, you just wouldn't see anything. You just see black. No, you wouldn't. You just see what it's like to see out of the closed eye when you close one eye. Right? Which is nothing. What is it like to see out of your elbow? Even though... So, what does this also imply? People who have this, just without the lens, this type of blindness, they place, an object in front of them? Can you guess what that object is in front of you? I'm blind, mate. How can I guess? I'll just do it. Right? Okay, a box? It is a box. They did this experiment, and people guessed right. These blind people guessed right of what's in front of them. Which means the brain can operate without the mind. If the brain can operate without the mind, solely through this objective data, then it could... Well, we'll see. Still on Qualia, still talking about Qualia. Explain to an alien... Oh, did I show you these? I forgot. 1, 2. These plans. Explain to an alien. You need to... we can... Yeah, there's still something to talk about Mary's room. Mary's room. Qualia is all senses. Literally every single senses. Your vision, your smell, your touch, your taste, hearing, right? Some animals don't have vision and depend on what echolocation, right? You can't explain to a bat what it's like to see. You can't explain to a monochromatic colorblind dog what it's like to... You can't explain to like a person that can't see color what color is like, right? You can't explain to a blind person what it's like to see, right? Imagine the box you're touching is just like a picture. What the fuck is a picture? I don't know. Matey. But it also goes the other way, right? You don't know what it's like to echolocate. You don't know what it's like to see in infrared. Oh, but we have infrared cameras. No, but because the infrared cameras are a simulation of what they'll see. This is the infrared, right? Imagine the infrared of this guy. You are still viewing that through your lens. You're still viewing that through your lens, so you can't really see. And also, whatever. Imagine infrared is green, right? And a person that can only see red has their red lens, looks at green, and it's like, oh, that's what people who see green, only green, must see. It looks a lot like black, so they probably just see black. No, they don't. You're just not fit. You're just not built to see it. You just had to be there during the evolutionary Fingal challenges. Anyways, explain to an alien. Usually, when explaining qualia, they go, can you explain to an alien what it's like to feel pain? I don't know. Does the alien feel pain? Nope. Okay, so I can't do that. Right? Some people think that if you have good enough language, you can make them feel pain. It's like, oh, you put these jumble of words together and you get like a sad story or something. And there's also this other theory that if language gets so great in the future that you could be able to make a sentence that when someone reads it, they'll become so depressed that they become suicidal and kill themselves. I just don't think that'll be the thing, because you're having subjective experience. Not everyone will have the same experience to an objective thing. Everyone has their own subjective experience. So that's probably not true. Anyways, fundamental things to explain to an alien. Pain, the happiness, right? And emotion in general, and the passage of time. Or if an alien... Okay, you just can't explain the passage of time, right? So imagine... you can't do it. Even these fundamental things are qualia, are subjective. Is there an objective passage of time? You'll see, mate. Anyways, that's the introduction and definitions gone. Is it... I could do consciousness. Consciousness is being aware, easily mistaken with sentience, which is being aware and having emotions, right? When I talk about the philosophy of mind, what is a mind? A mind is... A mind is the ipsity of yourself. Oh, I just hate that word. Every time I see that word, right? It has this weird, jargon-filled, just abstract type description. It is the identity of someone, the feeling of yourself, right? It's just not all that. Alright, Mind. Can I explain mind? When I say mind, whatever. Alright, we'll get... You know what mind is, alright? Don't think of me silly. On to... Introduction 2. Identity. Lock-in. Body swap. An evil scientist gets you and your op in a little room, and they swap your consciousness into each other's bodies. And then he asks, do you want me to torture your body with his mind in it, or his body with your mind in it? General consensus is, you obviously want your body with his mind in it, because he'll feel the torture, right? Unless you're a masochist, whatever. But what does this imply? This implies that the mind and the body are separate. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. What is body swap useful for? Body swap shows that your identity lies on your mind, not your body, not anything physical, right? Better example could be just, I chop off your hand. Was the hand a part of you? No. Okay, I chop off your arm. Just keep chopping it off, right? Obviously, you have to still have a working mind in order to respond, right? At the end, it's like your mind, just your mind. And it's like, alright, I'll cut that bit of the brain off. And, I don't know, at some point, you'll be dead when they start chopping up your mind. So, basically, mind, your identity lies in your mind. Alright, so you can see here, identity, it goes either this way or that way. So, 2 topics, right? I'll flip a coin. No, I won't. Memory theory, then. Memory theory and time. Fingal me retarded. I can say it. I'm self-diagnosed. Teletransporter. Kind of like the mind-body thing. In a teletransporter, I already told you this one, so this is just a recap. How does it work? It teleports you. How? It scans your body, finds every single individual atom and stuff. Kind of like Mickey 17. I haven't watched it. Have I? And it just breaks you down, and it breaks down every bit of you, and then it shoots you really far away and rebuilds you. And that's kind of like how the teleportation works. So, like that. Ding, 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 ding. And yet, so the guy operating this, some guy just goes through the machine and then says, alright, I'm suing you. Why? Because you killed me. No, look at you, you're clearly not dead. No, I'm a new person, right? I'm a new person. You killed the old person and you made a new person. You made a clone. Can you prove it? No, but can you prove it? No. You still feel like you're the same person, right? I guess. Alright, so you are the same person. We'll see. Basically, what would be the deciding factor on whether this guy has died? If this guy is A consciousness, goes over, gets broken down, gets rebuilt identically, and it's still a consciousness, that's kind of just like sleeping. This part you just aren't conscious in this part. And you just regain consciousness. B, nope, this is A. B, right? Once you start deconstructing him, he's dead. And when you made a new consciousness, that's a new consciousness. However, the B guy wouldn't suspect a thing. Why? Well, the B guy wouldn't suspect a thing. Why? Because Because they feel like they have a continuous experience. Why do they feel like they have a continuous experience? Well, how do you know you have a continuous experience, really? Right? Do I have this? Do I have any of this? Memory? No. The B guy will still feel like the B guy would feel like the A guy's consciousness, even if the A guy is dead. Okay? They still feel like it's continuous, right? Every time you wake up, do you think you've died? Do you think that your past has died and your present isn't, and your present is alive? No, you just feel like you're the same person, right? Even though you can't prove it. We'll get to that. This is just genuinely what it's all leading up to. Memory theory. Memory and death, right? The conclusion from the teletransporter was that if your consciousness ends, you die, right? I didn't really explain much on why that's the case, but I'm pretty sure you can see from the body swap thing that your mind is your identity, yourself, and to kill yourself, you kill the mind, and to kill the mind, kill the consciousness, yada yada, right? Something. So, some people think memory leads to death, right? Good example of this is Severance. Vigor, I recommended you Severance. You watched one episode, right? What else did I recommend you? Bullet Train, right? That very cool Minecraft civilization video. Did I do anything else? You know what you recommended? You recommended me to watch Has Been Hotel Season 2. That's just not the same, is it? That's just not the same, right? I've done far more better things, better recommendation. Watch Severance, matey. Watch that. I know they wake up. Like on a goofy little table, and some guy with a whack ass haircut just comes in and says, "You got perfect scores." Just watch it, mate. Just watch it. What? All right. This is memory. Goddamn. This is memory. Outie. Innie. That's a very funny belly button joke, mate. So when you're in a elevator, this is the elevator, this is the first floor, this is the second floor, right? That is the same consciousness throughout. However, it's just limiting if this is the inside bit. So the inside only stores and fetches memory from the inside memory storage. The outside only stores and fetches memory from the outside memory storage. So functionally, they're kind of two different people, but it's the same consciousness. It's just different memory, right? Wow, memory does a lot to influence a person. This must be a shocking news. It is, right? So imagine, right, the outie guy controls everything, right? If the outie guy just says, I've fallen into the human rights thingy that people are screaming in my ear about, I'm just gonna leave this company, right? I'm gonna leave this company. If he just quits forever, if he quits forever, right, he just leaves and he never comes back, this guy would go for the elevator and the any memory will never be used ever again, right? This guy just doesn't exist. You know what, maybe they put a procedure in there to wipe your inside figure's memory. I think that's how, that's probably how it works, right? So they got rid of every bit of inside memory and just left you with your outside memory. And it's like, did that inside guy die? Well, I don't know, that's for you to decide, matey. If you think about it, right, if they're genuinely two different people, then, and the inside guy's memory just gets wiped and never gets used again, is that the same as, are you just kind of functionally killing the guy? Based on the consciousness thing, because it's the same consciousness, I guess probably not, right, if you think about it. Or, this is more of a vibe thing if you're talking about memory and death. You just kind of look at it and you're like, that's kind of like killing someone. Yeah, but you can't really put your finger on it. Finger me once, right? Another person can say, severance is a fiction. This hypothetical is not parallel to anything in reality. So there's this guy called Clive Waring. He's one of my favorite people who are touched in the head, right? Second to 3 Christ of Ypsilanti. Clive Waring. He has herpes, which corrupted his brain, and now he has 2 types of amnesia, I think, and antrograde amnesia and retrograde amnesia, right? So basically, he can't remember stuff, and he can't store memory. And this combo is so rare, right? Just imagine functionally, if you can't store memory and you can't recall memory, you're just not living, are you? You're just, every single moment in your life is like an individual moment. You never have a continuous life. And you can see, okay, he has a diary, right? He writes in the diary, this is the first time I've ever waken up, right? A few minutes later, he looks at the diary. Who wrote that? Crosses it out, right? And then he writes, this is the actual first time I've ever woken up, right? I have a link to a documentary. It's interesting, I suppose. And then he just does this pages and pages of, this is the first time I'm actually awake. All the other times were fake. All the other times I was doing it subconsciously. But obviously we know that that's not true. And you can't tell him that's not true because he doesn't remember that you've told him that's not true. So for every single alright, so he has these periods of time, like 7 to 30 seconds, right, of remembering, right? After that, he's not going to remember. So maximum time he can remember what your explanation is what, 30 seconds. So you can't really explain to him what it's, that his condition, you can't really explain to him that you can't, yeah, it's just, this guy is just like it's a new person every few seconds, right? He walks around his house, right? He sees someone, and he says, oh, you're the first humans I've ever seen. Alright, obviously he knows English, right? There's a few kinds of, like, forget thingies. You still remember your core things, like how to cook something, I don't know, how to make coffee, how to, like, put on your socks or something, wear clothes, how to walk about, how to function as a human, how to speak English, right? Something or other, right? Those are like core stuff. He just forgot like the main stuff. One of the more core stuff that he can remember is he was a conductor. He could play the piano, right? Goes over to his piano. First time I ever see a piano, he says. First time ever touching keys of the piano. I've never played this before. I don't know what those notes say. And then he goes, ding, not like that, but he plays majestically, right? He gets into flow state. And yeah, he remembers like functions. He just doesn't remember him being anywhere aware. This guy's really interesting, right? He does a lot of work with free will stuff too. You know that example? If you have free will, then if you repeat an experience time after time, you would be able to have the free will to choose a different outcome, right? But if everything was deterministic and your subconscious like influence your mind a lot and your subconscious is taking in literally everything, right? Then your subconscious influencing your conscious makes you have no free will, because you'll experience the same thing every single time and you'll choose the same thing every single time, right? For example, you see a lot of red posters on your wall, so when you go to choose a hat, you chose a red hat, a MAGA hat or something, I don't know. Same with blue, I don't know. And this guy, because he's genuinely resetting his memory every few 30 seconds, he like repeats a lot of stuff, right? You can hear him just repeating the phrase, the first time I've ever seen humans, right? And it's like, oh, is he just like fingled? Yes he is, right? He doesn't know he said it, but he thought it was like a new thing to say, because it is genuinely he feels like it's genuinely his first time being awake, his first time doing anything that he's currently doing, right? This is like, why doesn't his family kill him already? I don't know. What am I on about? You could ask him a question. His wife. Yeah, he has a wife. Apparently he remembers the face of his wife for some reason, right? He can recognize stuff. He can recognize everything. Remember, those are core stuff. He just doesn't remember doing anything. He can say, oh, that's a bed, that's a toaster, that's a piano, but it is just the first time I'm seeing these things. But whatever, right? He can recognize his wife. He has a wife. His wife asks, what do you think I do? What do you think my job is? And he'll go, I forgot what he says. Something like some political stuff. Secretary of State. No, they're in England. Head colonizer. Something or other, right? She asks this question, he answers it. Wrong, correct. Right? Yeah. She asks this again in like after a few seconds of him asking, right? And he answers like really similar answers, right? And that kind of shows you how it kind of shows that free will. Like, this guy does not have free will. Nobody has free will. Everything is deterministic, because they're kind of like just experiencing the same things over and over, right? It's basically the same situation. He's basically being asked the same things, right? Maybe it's her tone of voice that makes him vary a little bit. Maybe it's like her slightly being in the left, slightly being in the right. Every small thing, butterfly effect, something or other. And we're not talking about free will. He also tells the same jokes too. And he doesn't know he's already told them, so he'll probably think it's a banger. Anyways, what am I on about? Yeah, he says himself, I know what it feels like to die, and it feels like nothing, right? Because he genuinely thinks that it's the first time he's felt anything, like, at all times. And this kind of if you're living like this, and it's like a different person every few seconds, and if your morality is like you should treat everyone deserves a nice life, should we hook this guy up to an infinite happy station? What could that be? Milking station? No. He what? This is not a bit. I'm not being a long-term memory on purpose. Finger me silly. Something. Yeah. Because he's a new person like every single few seconds, and every person deserves to have a good life, should he be hooked up to an infinitely happy simulator so that every time he has like his old person dies, he has a new person in? The answer would be no, because he's basically us, right? If I forget something, does that mean I've not existed at that time? No. Right? Does that mean I'm dead at that specific moment in time? No. So memory and death is just not a thing, right? This is just why we think that memory plays such a huge role on consciousness. And now, onto memory and reality. I've had dreams. Have you had dreams? I don't know. I've had a lot of dreams where I wake up twice, right? I'm having a dream and I wake up. That was a dream. All right, that was a dream. Now I'm fine. All right, and then I think in my head. Damn, that was a dream. That dream, I didn't really feel. I don't. Right, whatever. Wake up once. Oh damn, that was a dream. I could definitely tell that was a dream, right? And then wake up a second time. Whoa, why did I think that I was in reality during that wake up, right? Because every time you think of that you're in a dream, you think that you're really lucid. No, you think that all of your experiences in a dream are like, when you're in the dream yourself, you're really like foggy. The reality is really distorted. But yeah, I suppose the reality is like, as in structures, right? As in scenes, locations, right? It's distorted. You get teleported a lot, around a lot in your dreams. But my theory is that you're just lucid dreaming at all times. The term lucid dreaming is kind of like, you know that you're dreaming and you take advantage of it, right? But no, lucidity just means that you're aware, that things feel pretty real, right? And I think things always feel real in dreams. And it's just you remembering that dream. Remembering that dream. You remember it not very goodfully. So, which makes it so that you think that reality isn't really that lucid at that specific time. Do I have evidence? I guess. I was nodding off in class. I was front row in front of the teacher, right? Right in front of the teacher, actually. Teacher was right there. I'm right there. That is me. Nodding off in front row, right? I did this twice in 2 lessons, right? But one time I nod, and like, you know when you like nod off, and then you like fall, and then you fall, and then you just jump back up, like the monkey thing I said earlier with your feet. You jump back up, right? When you jump back up, you're like, damn, I was sleeping, right? I did that. I did that, but I did it twice. I was like, damn. I was sleeping then. I was completely unlucid there. I don't know the word. I was completely unconscious then. And then I wake up again, right? And I'm like, now I'm lucid. What the fuck? What? Right? If I weren't lucid at the time, at the first time, sleep, or like noddling, wake, noddling, wake, real. If I were thinking after I woke up, right, and I thought, damn, that I was pretty lucid then. Why would I think that was lucid when that was just, when right now I think that is not lucid, right? Why would I have the thought that I just woke up from being really fingled, now I'm lucid, now I'm lucid, and then I wake up now and I'll be like, now I'm lucid, now I'm awake. That was false. Reminds you of anyone? That reminds you. Clive fucking Waring. He does this, right? Wakes up twice, and it's like, now I'm awake, right? I wasn't actually awake then, right? I wasn't actually awake then, because I had the feeling of waking up. And you know the feeling of waking up? The feeling of waking up is, like, from really foggy to really lucid, right? I had that feeling of waking up then, as well. Are you fucking insane? What the fuck are you talking about? What the fucking kind of theory is this? This is the memory theory. Short after that day, that exact night, I had a dream, Martin Luther King type shit, and I woke up twice, right? And because of that event, I started thinking more about lucidity. So, sleep, wake, sleep, wake, real, right? Goes up. When I woke up for the first time, I was like, that was actually a dream. Now I'm awake. Now I'm lucid. I'm so glad that this happened, because now I can distinct that what it feels like to be lucid, right? Now I know what it feels like to be lucid, because I remember being quite lucid in that dream, right? And it's like, now, oh, that dream was pretty lucid, but now I'm lucid. Now I'm actually genuinely lucid, right? I actually thought this in those exact words. Perhaps not, but I do think about this. Now I'm actually awake. And then I wake up again. Twice? Same day, twice? Kill me now, right? Dreams are also a very interesting thing to... I'm just tangent here. Dreams are also very interesting things to, like, notice patterns in. Because it's, like, a completely unknown thing. Well, it's not unknown, right? Scientists can, like, now visualize what dreams are. I saw that one Vsauce video, I think, where they hooked up this guy to an MRI machine when he dreams, and they can make, like, a nice enough picture of his dreams. What am I on about? This shows that dreaming is pretty lucid, after all. I have had one lucid dream where I felt the floor, and it was the small, tiny concrete pebbles just scraped across my hand, right? If I applied more force, I would have felt pain. I would have been actually genuinely bleeding from that fucking hand, right? Reminds me of that scene in Life in Mars, where he's in a coma. Spoiler alert, just too late. He's in a coma, and he's like, touches this other guy's hand, and it's like, why is your hand sandy? If I was in a coma, why would I actually give the effort into making your hands feel sandy, right? But that's genuinely something that a dream would do. A dream would genuinely do something illogical, right? Because dreams have no plot. Nothing is... dreams genuinely don't have meaning, right? They say, oh, when you're losing your teeth, when you your teeth fall out, that's like when you're scared of growing up. Yeah, I guess, but generally, dreams have no meaning. I remember dreaming about a tree that's floating, right? I'm in a bus, a floating tree, and I look up. The tree's branches are entangled with a gate. That sequence passed, it's like 2 seconds. 2-second sequence of this really weird, complex kind of thing. Why would the dream do that? Because the dream has no plot, right? The dream isn't referencing anything, it isn't metaphorically talking about anything. Like, dreams aren't literature. What? Anyways. Memory and reality. Your memory is really filled with dreams. When you forget your dreams, right? When you forget your dreams, it's almost as if the dream... functionally, the dream could have just never happened if you were to forget the dream. But usually when you forget a dream, which you do a lot, you forget a lot about your dream. You just don't. You just think the dream has, passed by really, really quickly. Right? Sometimes I forget a lot about a dream, and then I remember certain bits, and it's like, oh wow, this dream is... Now I recall, this dream is super... This dream has a lot of things going on, not just the main things, right? You think that the dream is shorter than it actually is. Something time experience. They say, you know the graph like that, right? Like that. No. Yeah, something like that. That's you when you're a kid, that's you in your 30s and 40s, that's you when you're dead, right? Why do people report experiencing time faster in 30s and 40s? Oh, that year just flew by, in a millisecond. God damn. It's because of the recorded memory. The general consensus is there's this recorded memory thing, right? When you experience something for the first time, you'll think about it more, right? You'll remember your first kiss more vividly than your 270th. You also did, because you were a kid, right? You'll do a lot more first things, right? Eventually you'll run out of new things to do, new first experiences, and now you're just speeding through life, right? Because you're not doing anything new. Which is... And this kind of recorded memory thing. Memory directly ties to the experience of passage of time. Yes it does, right? Because of this confirmed theory that memory affects time passage, it kind of shows... Well, you'll see. Alright? Derealization also. You've spoken something on this, I think. Derealization, you're people say, damn, the whole year just flew by. The whole year just felt like a dream, right? Everything just felt like a dream. I know you felt like a dream for 1 week, right? Something or other. What? I didn't write this. Yeah, and that's... Derealization is apparently because of stress or something, anxiety, And that will fingle with your memory. Stress and anxiety really fingles with your memory. And because of your memory, reality just kind of is warped. Your experience of reality is warped by your memory. It's not just time. It's not just... Yeah, it's the only thing I have. It's not just memory affecting your experience of time. Memory affects your experience of reality, of your lucidity. Like I said in the dream, the more you forget, the more you think it didn't exist. Can you remember? You're like, when you were like a really small kiddo, right? Those years may as well not existed for you currently. You can't remember them, and you're like, damn, when I was like a fucking toddler, time must have passed by really, really quickly, because I wasn't really conscious then. Yes, you were. You were fully conscious when you were a kid. You're fully lucid when you were a kid, right? You just think you aren't now because you can't really remember it. Obviously, babies sleep a lot during the day and are really tired, right? But my main point is, your toddlerhood didn't speed by like 5 seconds time. Anyways, what dreams? All right, we've done memory. Here's the point. Memory affects experience of reality. Just remember that. So, what am I doing? Last Thursdayism. I tried to explain to someone what my views on times are, in my like religion lesson. Religion lesson is genuinely so buns, right? And he said, what the fuck what are you talking about? Alright, so I tried to explain to this guy, you know last Thursdayism? No, you just made that up. Right? It's such a silly name, right? He just can't be convinced that it's a real thing. Last Thursdayism. Last Thursdayism is the belief, nobody actually believes this, that everything in the universe was created last Thursday. And all of your memories were created last Thursday. You're like, no, hold on. I remember something happening last Monday. That memory was just made last Thursday. No, hold on. Look at this scientific finding, scientific thing about paleontology. That this dinosaur bone was like made of thousands of years ago. Nope, the scientific equipment was just made to like function this specific way. Like, it's just all false. It's just everything was genuinely made last Thursday in order to trick you into thinking the universe is just billions of years old. And why do I need to talk about this? Because usually when I talk about what I'm about to talk about, they'll point to things that like feel really, really not right. Just intuitively, you feel like, hold on, that doesn't sound very plausible, does it? Right? But if I give you these examples, you'll feel more strongly, feel more literally. You know, actually, this topic I've already told you about in my little fingled, in the title You're Already Dead. You already know this. Yeah, you could skip to wherever. You shouldn't. This is not the civilization video. What? Time. No, not yet. Boltzmann brain. Just kind of like last Thursdayism, all of your memories are created at one single instant, right? If the universe was infinite, then everything would be made. Literally everything, every single combination, every single universe. Multiverse theory depends on this. Because it is a statistical inevitability for everything to happen, even the random things. Because if you have like a 1 in a million chance to like win the lottery or something, but you have like infinite amounts of lottery tickets, yeah, then you're statistically inevitable to win that lottery. What? Or yeah, this, and because of the statistical inevitability, they say that it is more likely that you are just a brain floating in space, that all the molecules just happen to randomly come together to become this brain, to have all of these cohesive memories that look as if it's in like a specific timeline, and you just have consciousness for that one split second, and then you're just blown to bits, ravaged by space. It's more likely for that to happen than you actually being on an Earth, because of statistical inevitability. Obviously, nobody believes this. Nobody believes this because, first of all, it's depressing to believe in, and second of all, it's not useful to believe in. But what do these two dilemmas? No, examples tell us about our experience of reality? That everything can genuinely, that the continuousness you feel is not really continuousness, is it? Right? You don't really, your memory is just really unreliable. Sometimes I remember stuff that I feel, I don't know, dreamcore. People like dreamcore. Because they remember like weird stuff in their dreams. Sometimes you like remember stuff wrong. Deja vu happens. Jamais vu, like the opposite of deja vu. Your memory is unreliable. It's basically the simplified version, less grand version of last Thursdayism, and it kind of shows how you could Locurcuinly be made last Thursday. I'm just repeating words. Continuousness is a perceptual thing. Anyways, onto time consciousness. Ooh la la. Memory can be unreliable and continuousness is an illusion of memory. Continuousness? Whatever, the flow of time. Flow of time. We'll disprove this or approve this later on, which is now. Talking about time consciousness. Time consciousness, finger me silly. On to this bit, by the way. Cinematic, retentional, and extensional. One like that. I got these visuals from, I remember these visuals from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which is genuinely so littered with jargon that I do not understand what they're talking about. Probably, maybe I shouldn't blame this on jargon. Maybe I'm illiterate. Maybe I have dyslexia. Maybe the Hong Kong education system wasn't all that. Perhaps. Or maybe they're just gatekeeping knowledge for the intellectual and keeping the poor poor and the rich rich. And then this is all a capitalistic ploy. Anyways, Cinematic is saying that time, your experience of time, is like a bunch of frames. When I say time consciousness, it's not actual time, it's just how you experience time. Oh my god, look at that posture, fuck me. Cinematic consciousness. What? Cinematic model of time consciousness. Cinematic theory of time, fuck me. Frames, like a movie, like in the cinema, right? Everything is frames, and when played together, it's like a movie. My life is like a movie. My life is like a video. Cinematic. Humans. Okay, that seems plausible. Things appear to move because they're played together frame after frame. Alright, if we isolate this one frame, then what? If we isolate this one frame, and you're like, what do you feel in that frame? Well, I just feel. Well, I don't really feel anything. Do you feel continuous in that frame? No, because continuous is like, it depends on, like, the past. You gotta, like, compare because time is kind of like moving. Time moves, if you think it does, right? Yeah, here's an example. Do you see my fingers wiggling? These boxes, these squares are not moving, type shit. Are my fingers moving? Do you see my fingers moving? If you said yes, you're a retard. Because, let's say, this is the video. The video is what? 30 frames per second, maybe? My finger would be stationary in every single frame. So when you select out one specific frame, my finger wouldn't be moving at that specific frame, right? If you experience one frame of time, you wouldn't be experiencing the flow of time. That's like the common critique. Here's a critique that is back to reason. Temporal resolution, which is the frames per second of the human eye or brain. Oh, just don't care. Humans see in 60 frames per second, and the brain like has like smoothened things out so things would look smoother. If you do this, don't use the video. If you do this to yourself, there's like a blur between your hands. Parkinson's fans. Blur. What am I on about? Because the human brain like views stuff in 60 frames per second, right? And some people would say, hey, hold on, I feel time slowing down when I'm in stressful situations, right? I feel like stuff slowing down when I'm in stressful situations, like bungee jumping, right? So they tested this by flashing an image. I don't know, I forgot, right? This is probably how they did it. Right? They flashed like a blocky A, and then they like invert the colors, and they just flash these two images. And if you flash it fast enough, the A merges, and what you'll see is just that. Okay? If it goes over 60 frames per second, which is what a human can perceive, you'll see that, right? There's a theory that, for example, when you're in sexual situations, the adrenaline in your everything just overclocks your temporal resolution, so you can see more than 60 seconds, because you require yourself to see more than 60 seconds because of stress. And that's like evolution and all. Is this true? Perhaps. No, it isn't. They tested this. They pushed people off a ledge. I think. Whatever, just put them in stressful situations. Showed them a video of this playing, and the reported results is that no, they did not experience. They were not able to see the letter, because their temporal resolution didn't increase. It was just the passage of time, which is qualia, that really just fingered stuff up. The recorded memory thingy that I said earlier, that, the first time you see something, you'll feel like it lasted longer, right? Yeah. When you're bungee jumping, for example, you're taking in all the new information, because when you bungee jump, it's like a barrage of new stuff that you're experiencing, right? So time kind of slows down for you. You record more and more memories, right? Memory affects the experience of reality and experience of time. Oh, I already have that. Flow of time is an illusion of memory. I don't need this bit. Okay, so now that we've proved cinematic wrong, on to retentional. Is this not working? No, it is. Retentional. What is retentional? Basically, that does not. Imagine a shooting star. Right? I can do a better star. Oh, speaking of Star of David, look at that. Check the fit, mate. I thought that was Hebrew, but it's just like a Hebrew-like English font. Glory to Benjamin Netanyahu. Please monetize the video. I don't have... What am I on about? That is the present, right? The present, this is what you experience this in the present. This is the present. Fuck it, this pen is actually... This... This is... This... Whatever, good enough. This is the present, right? The present holds bits of the past. Like the magical trail of a shooting star that you see, it holds slight bits in the past, and it like sort of fades away the further it is on the tail trademark. And that is how you feel the passage of time. When you point to one frame, you're like, do you feel any continuousness in that one specific frame? No. Do you feel any continuousness in this? Yes. It's right here. I'm comparing my present to my past, and the flow of time is just an illusion of your memory. And if I remember stuff like from the distant past, from the close past, then I feel the flow of time. Wow. Wowee. Yep, wowee. And how does time move? The Star of David just goes forward, and it just goes forward, and then it just slowly fades and fades and fades. This seems like the most accurate model of time. Fucking hell, extensional. This is... I don't know much about extensional, but from what I've heard, like, a lot of time can fit into the present. It's not like a fading memory. It's literally a lot of time into the present. What? The present is 5 seconds long. Something like that. And it's like, oh my god. A lot of time, that's one present. The other present is caused by another 5 seconds. And it's like, when you point to one of them, you'd go, are you feeling continuous then? Obviously I'm feeling continuous. Look how much time I'm experiencing. If I'm experiencing this much time, then I must feel continuous. What about in between? What? How do you feel continuous when you're like going in between these two frames? I don't there's no... Yeah, because when that bit connects to that bit, it's just... Extensional is such a shit model of time, right? I searched this when I first informed myself about this, and I just asked Google AI search, because I'm not going on jargon-filled website. Explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old baby caterpillar. Okay, your mommy is gonna come here and feed you some eggs soon. So please listen up. What am I on about? Matey. Alright. Most philosophers who believe in cinematic believe that, one frame actually has slightly bit of fading frame. That is just retentional. Can you just please say bow? Alright? In order to justify cinematic, you gotta move it slightly bit to retentional. In order to justify extensional, you gotta... You shouldn't. Just don't do it. Retentional. Alright, so this is why retentional. Retention is our model. Yes, us. Anyways, what now? Now that we've done with time consciousness, we're gonna deal with actual time. What is it? 1 hour 18 minutes? Fuck me. Actual time. We have presentism. You know what? No, not yet. What I'm about to explain is almost identical to a video that I saw earlier. I just took notes, right? So, I'm not plagiarizing, I'm just a stupid figure. Temporal ontology, logy, A or B, and temporal passage of time. A or B theory. What does this mean, Kobe Bryant? Temporal ontology, whether it exists, which moments in time exist? Does the past, present, future exist? Some of them say only the present exists, some of them say all of them exist, some of them say that only the past and the present exist. So on, right? A or B theory. A theory says that there is one objective state in time, which is usually the present, B says that they're all objective. That's pretty cool. Temporal passage of time. That shows if time is static or dynamic. Basically, if time moves. So, did you memorize this? Yeah, because it's coming off. Alright, 4 models of time. Present, synthetism, growing, block, eternal, dualism, and moving spotlight. Presentism, which is basically what everyone believes in. Time goes like this, in a line. That is the past, that is the present, and that is the future. Alright, let's check the 3 boxes. Where was it? Temporal ontology. Temporal ontology, only the present exists. The past has existed but doesn't anymore. The future will exist but isn't currently non-existent. The present exists. It is a theory of time, which means there is an objective state, which is present. Present is objective. And last but not least, temporal passage. It is dynamic. How this model will move is that this line would shuffle backwards. This infinite line, or maybe time will end, will shuffle backwards, and the present will always stay the same, but the line would move. Alright? Moving spotlight is different. It is a line, future, past, and that's the present. What? Moving spotlight says that all of them exist. All of these exist. Past, present, and future. Right? However, the present is still the objective time. That is current. That is what it is now. Moving spotlight is basically a moving spotlight, right? Instead of the line moving backwards, it's the spotlight moving along the line. The present is going forward. So it is dynamic. Growing block. You'll hear the glowing block theory from Kyrgyzstan, right? It grows upwards. Growing block is basically saying past and present exist, and it's model A. This one's model A as well, right? What is the objective? The objective is the present. The present is still objective. Even though the past exists, the present is still objective. And it is dynamic. The block slowly builds up. Now, how is this different to that, right? It says the past also exists. If the past also exists, that means you can do some funky stuff, like space-time. You know space-time, Interstellar. The guy from Interstellar, I can't explain this, can I? I'm just not that good. What was it? What's the common example? Common example, there's like a rag. That is the fabric of time. Get it? Because it's fabric. You place something, that is the sun, funky looking sun, and it just warps the fabric of time. And now because there's a dip, like planets would dip along to it as well, That's how stuff gets attracted. But instead of a one-dimensional fabric, it's a three-dimensional fabric, which is just like a 3D grid. And if you have something in the 3D grid, the grid lines warp towards it. There will be a video on this, linked, because I'm just too stupid a beaver to explain. If you watch Kyrgyzstan's video about time, how time works, he ends on the growing block theory. Because he says, wait, you know what? I'm just gonna do eternalism. Eternalism says, all of them exist. All exists. Oh my god, is it just like glowing block? Nope, because it doesn't grow. It is static. It is B model of time. B model says there's not one objective, they're all objective, right? Everything in the eternalism block is just is, which I guess wrong. Why is eternalism and growing block a block? This is also called block model. Why is it a block? What are the practical uses for a block universe? Well, because of space-time, time is relative, mass warping fabric of reality causing time to slow in certain areas. When you go in a black hole, you experience time slower than other people. So that one example where you shoot the guy into space and at the speed of light, and when he comes back he's dead. No, when he comes back, everyone's like 10 years older than that guy. Something or other. And this supports it because there's no present, right? There's no present at all. If there is no present, well, they all exist. It says here they all exist, but the present is just an illusion. The present is an illusion. What? Stop. The present is... You get to choose where the present is. If they all exist, then the present could be, here? Or you could be here, it could be here. Depends on the person, right? Depends on where you want it to be. Depends on which present you want to touch on. Which I don't think is that good. If the present can be anywhere, then why even use the term present? So there shouldn't be a present. If there's no present, then why would there be a past and future? What are the past and future dependent on? Just get rid of those already. Basically, all of time exists, and there's no before, after, or now, because they all exist, and are all equally true. Kyrgyzstan's video says, wow, eternalism fits with the, physics? Physics is space-time model and shit. Because different people experience different kinds of time, not just passage of time, but also, genuinely, in the physics model, some people are, experience time slower than other people, and will age slower. Things are slower in different settings. So he says, wow, this must be the best model out there. However, it doesn't take account into free will. What? Did someone say free will? If the future exists, then us in the present we are determined. We are determined by... every single one of our actions are determined because the future is already decided. Okay, so... Well, we know free will isn't true because there are intrinsically random things in the universe, like quantum particles. Quantum particles are just scientifically, it is impossible to predict whether they're gonna die or not gonna die, right? You're gonna say, this guy's gonna die in a few seconds. wait like hundreds of years, it's not dead. Or you could say, this guy's gonna be alive for at least a few seconds, instantly dies. There's no way to scientifically predict any of their actions. And they're like, Kogastat says, because this is unpredictable, then clearly that shows that the universe isn't deterministic and that free will does exist. So how do we implement this into a time model? Obviously, we have the growing block model, where this sheet is slowly growing by like little quantum particles, and the quantum particles decide to die or not, and the sheet is like all wobbly and shit. And growing block model supports the idea of free will. Okay. However, yeah, you can't predict what a quantum particle does, right? I don't know if what I'm saying is bullshit, but can you remember what a quantum particle did? Yes. You don't have to predict it, right? If you're in the future and you look back at the past, and can you predict the past? No. Can you predict the past? Yes. Because it's already happened, right? Okay, if it's already happened, then there's no way for it to be random, right? Yeah. So if all of time just happened at the same time, everything just happened at the same time, then wouldn't that be... then there would be no random, right? Oh, but they're unpredictable. No, they're not. If you're like... I'll pretend the time axis is this way, time. If you're at the end of time, you can predict every single quantum particle before you, and you can know every single thing. I know that specific particle will die in a few seconds, will die in like the exact time that it dies, because it's already happened, because everything happened at the same time, because it's already existed. It isn't deterministic, it is just... Because when you say deterministic, right, this rag falling is determined by me letting go, right? But if, like... Because if everything happens at the same time, there'll be no causality, because it's literally happening at the same time. It's not this caused this, it's boom, a perfect picture, right? No, if there is no causality, and no causality would work in a specific model of time like eternalism, then free will and like randomness in quantum particles just do not really... It's just not all that, right? Just not it. And I'm not sure about this, but the point of eternalism is that you could go from this is space, I think, time. I don't know what this axis is, but you could move like somewhere else. If you move somewhere else, like in like this axis and not the time axis, you can move without being affected by time, and that works with your space-time. That works with just the idea of space-time, right? But if you can't move like there, because it hasn't happened yet, so what's the point in it being a block? I don't know. I'm no physicist. I don't study time. I'm just yapping, right? Right? This is just me saying what I believe is the most likely theories about time. So we got eternalism. What now? Okay. Eternalism, what does this mean? What does eternalism imply life to be? Well, I don't feel like if there's no present and the present isn't moving and the present is just dependent, right? forgot what I said about this. If you could choose like that present, and you can choose a present from either a few milliseconds away, a few minutes away, or maybe a few years away, right? And you ask those different me's that, do you feel like you're in the present right now? They'll all say, yeah, I feel like I'm in the present right now, right? And since all of time is objective, all of time is equally existent, and all of time is equally true, they are all in the present. I am not a moving consciousness. I do not go for, even though it feels like it, right? It just really feels like it. But remember my last Thursdayism. It really feels like the universe existed for 100 years. But for a couple 100 billion years, I think. But I just can't prove it, can I? With last Thursdayism? Obviously, through our memory things, what I said, flow of time is an illusion of memory. This is the foundational support of how this might be actually plausible. Yep, that's about it. Anyways, time for part B. Oh my god, look how much more there is on part B. Look how much time has passed. 1 hour and 40 minutes? Don't rape me silly. Alright. What were we talking about before we talked about the time stuff? Look at that. Identity, body swap, teletransporter. Body swap actually has a different kind of example. The different kind of example is that if your body is swapped, instead of your consciousness being swapped, instead of your mind being swapped, it's the information in your brain being swapped to the other person, right? If you rewrite that person's brain to have your experiences and rewrite your brain to have his experiences, or they. I'm not transphobic. Video about me being transphobic soon. So. What am I on about? Bernard Williams body swap thingy. Not the actual body swap thingy. The Bernard Williams version where you swap the information instead of swapping the mind, right? If you were to say that, I'm going to torture the brain with his information in it, then that would imply that you believe in the materialism being mind, it can be reduced to stuff, or basically the mind is a physical thing, right? If the information theory, if your mind just comes from your brain, then if you swap like the information in your brain, then his brain of your information is your mind. That is what materialism believes. But if you don't think so, you think you just swap the information, the consciousness stays the same because of how my brain is shaped. Alright then, you believe in dualism. Why is there an extra large space at the corner? Might there be a third? No. Mind and body, or basically mind and physical stuff, are separate. Which one seems more plausible? That your mind is made out of, can be reduced to stuff, neurons, and all that? Or your mind is like a spiritual other thing compared to your physical self? Talk about dualism first, I guess. Should I? Should I? I should. Alright, talk about materialism first. Materialism can be split into many sub-theories about materialism. But they all talk about the same bullshit, which is that fundamentally the mind can be made up of physical stuff, right? I'm a materialist. Why did I just call that bullshit? Well, you'll see, mate. I found the most plausible one. Functionalism, which is every mental state has is identical to a physical state in the brain. Therefore, every single one of your emotions is literally just physical states, right? Your mind is directly your mind is the physical states. Your mind is the physical states of the brain, right? For example, if I poke you, right? If I poke you and I have like a needle in my finger, I poke you, you're like, ow, right? Your brain, the neuron in your brain feels hurt. No. Your nervous system sends a signal to your brain. That neuron activates in the hurt chamber. The hurt chamber makes you feel, ow, and it's just like a behavioral thing. Wow, okay. So, this is really a terrible theory, because it's kind of like the Turing test. Turing test, you know about this one. Turing test about AI, about whether it is conscious. So basically it says, if the AI can trick you into thinking it's human, then it's conscious. If the AI can trick you into thinking that it's conscious, into you thinking that it's conscious, then it's conscious, right? That doesn't seem quite right. That just doesn't seem quite right, does it? It's basically saying, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and shits like a duck, it is a duck. No, I can do that. I can show you. A really unnecessary thing to disprove the Turing test being like a valid thing is a Chinese room. Digital circus reference? Shut your figure ass up. Sign now. I just didn't need to say that, did I? Please calm yourself down. Chinese room. Basically, there's a guy in a room. He has like a bunch of logical thingies. If this sentence, you reply with this sentence, right? So you slip in a few Chinese characters. The guy looks at the Chinese characters, look at the orders, looks at the logic systems on, oh, this symbol, this symbol, this symbol. I should reply with these symbols, right? And then he sends out a coherent message. And he's like, oh wow, the guy responded pretty coherently to what I said. I believe that guy is a fluent Chinese speaker in there. No, he just uses logical systems to determine what you're saying. He doesn't actually understand what's being said. Okay. So, unnecessary, because everyone knows that even if it quacks like a duck, purrs like a duck, and squeaks like a duck, it's just not a duck, is it? It just doesn't. You need more evidence for that. Unless you're a mereological nihilist, please don't kill me right now. Whatever. What could this imply? What could this imply? Philosophical zombies, right? Basically, it's the idea that someone could have, it's the idea that a person could have no inner mental state, no consciousness at all, but is able to like act purely out of instinct of the body. You can tell this could be a thing because of blind sight, right? Your brain knows what is there even though you're not getting any input to your mind, right? A person, Helen Keller could have low-key done all that, but she's just not a real person, is she? Right? Helen Keller could have done all that based on objective reality, but I just don't think that is the case. Philosophical zombies, basically like robots that have no brain, that just operate on logical stuff. Basically, operating on logical stuff, that is basically the basis of materialism, right? So how does materialism lock in, right? You can be like, you know what, forget the Turing test, forget the fucking Chinese room, even though those are like terrible. Functionalism can still work. Mind is basically the physical states. If it looks like a mind and acts like a mind, it is a mind. I believe that. I totally believe that. And no, hard problem of consciousness. Hard. What are you going to tell us next? There's a easy problem of consciousness? No, it's called the soft problem of consciousness, right? Basically, the hard problem of consciousness is targeted to materialists, saying how can consciousness exist if everything's made of material? How can consciousness be just a physical thing, right? So materialism looks kind of flimsy right now, because all it's saying is that there is no such thing as mind, right? What you're calling mind is literally just physical stuff, right? Which is kind of not true, because I'm literally conscious right now. I'm feeling all this qualia stuff. Look at that. I can see red. No, I can't. Colorblind. What? Alright, how do I fingle this out? Oh my god, what am I writing? Panpsychism. Oh my god, my goat panpsychism. What does panpsychism have to say? Panpsychism says mind. Does it? Nope. Everything is fundamentally conscious. What? Why do you believe in such stupid things? I don't know. Everything is fundamentally conscious. Seems pretty silly to me. Yeah, let's just not have that. Everything is fundamentally conscious. Basically, are you saying that this rag is conscious? Are you saying that that particle is conscious? Yes, it's saying everything is fundamentally conscious. That particle is fundamentally conscious, right? It's kind of like whatever string theory is, but instead of a string, it's just consciousness. How does consciousness fit into our model of science? Just make it the fundamental thing figure. Oh, easy. It seems plausible in this way, but just don't. Panpsychism is heavily critiqued by intuitively it not making sense. It's just being too implausible, right? If you... Oh, I just didn't write anything from panpsychism, did I? Whatever. Panpsychism is plausible, right? Thinking about qualia. All these qualias are from your senses. If I make you blind, are you still just as conscious as everyone else? Yes. Yes, you are. If I make you deaf also, are you still... Oh my god, Helen Keller. Just... If I got rid of all of your senses, are you still just as conscious as you with all of your senses? Yes, I am conscious. I just don't have your qualia. Alright, what if I made you Clive Waring? You can't store memory. You have nothing to store memory. Okay, so right now I am not able to experience anything because I have no qualia. I cannot remember anything happening because I have no memory, right? If you just get rid of all these things that you think are like fundamentally related to consciousness, but genuinely consciousness do not need these things on its own. That particle is not actually experiencing anything. Why? It can't remember experiencing anything. It doesn't have thinking. It doesn't have a brain. It doesn't know. It doesn't know what's happening. Alright? It wouldn't... Yes, everything is conscious. Everything is fundamentally conscious. Blah, 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 blah. Your brain just can't think, first of all. It can't suffer. It has no qualia input. It has no objective input. It has nothing. Not memory. Yeah, I'm just repeating myself. Whatever. That being said, consciousness can be fundamental. Right? People are saying, oh, what does panpsychism do to ethics? Does that mean that this rag should have like moral human rights? No, because that rag cannot feel pain. Because it doesn't have like a nervous system. It cannot suffer. It doesn't have a mind to suffer. It doesn't have a memory to suffer. It doesn't have anything going into it that it knows that what suffering is. Therefore, panpsychism is plausible. Look at that. Look how plausible. I don't need that. We don't need that. Great. Panpsychism is also hit with something else. Not just the intuitive implausibility of it. It's the combination problem. Ooh. How do all these small pieces of consciousness combine into this big consciousness? Well, obviously, how does this small metal atom become this big metal object? Obviously, it's by becoming like a big metal object. What? So, if I cut off your brain, will you have less consciousness? Yes. What? That's not the general consensus. Yes, I will have less consciousness if you got rid of like a lot of the matter in my brain, right? Yes. Will that affect me? Probably not. Not everyone has the same amount of consciousness, I don't think, right? Everyone's brain shape is not similar. It's not the same. Nobody has identical brains, identical twins. No, identical twins. Just I don't know. I can't remember. Identical twins. Yeah, they'll probably have the same amount of consciousness, whatever. But generally speaking, nobody has the same brain. Nobody has the same amount of consciousness. And these big consciousnesses are just like, yeah, they are like building blocks. I am just throwing sand onto like a bucket. And it's like, the more sand in the bucket, the more sand is in the bucket. The more grains of sand in the bucket, the more heavy the bucket is. And what does this imply? The worst implication of this is that you can make a giant brain that is so fucking conscious that it... I don't know. You wrote a book about that, mate. Alright, just do you. Anyways, on to dualism. Right? Panpsychism is currently surviving. If it just doesn't work through logic, I'm just gonna cross it out. Dualism. Already looking at it, it's pretty funky, because you're saying there's like two different realms. There's a material, and then there's mental, and then your mind is like not whatever. There's substance dualism. Substance dualism says that the mind is independent to the body. Mind independent to body. Mind can influence body. That's a bold claim, mate. Yeah, it is. It really is. Right? The mind can influence the body, and the mind is independent. I guess, alright? Because when you're in your mind, you feel like you're controlling how your body moves. Look at that. Arm go up. Low-hanging fruit. Something low-hanging fruit. What am I on about? Interaction problem. Substance dualism is hit with the interaction problem. How does the mind influence what the physical stuff does, right? How does the mind influence what the physical stuff does, right? Does it just, I want this specific neuron to fire, so it gives it a little bit of energy. How does it do that? Does it make energy? No, energy can't be made. Substance dualism is absolutely crumbling under the general laws of physics, unlike panpsychism. So let's just rape it silly right now. Substance dualism also shows that since the mind and the body, right, the mind and the physical self are like different. Not now. Perhaps not now. There is such thing. Alright, this is hit with, what was it? Interaction. Interaction problem is the main thing on fighting dualism. Hard problem consciousness is the main thing fighting materialism, right? What beats the interaction problem? Property. I brought a property in dualism. The meme's dead for a few months. A few. It's been the whole year. It's been a year, Daddy. That's like a bunch of years. Please kill me now. What? Oh. Minds emerge from stuff. Wait a second. Isn't that? No. Because this one's saying the stuff is the mind. This one's saying the mind comes from the stuff, right? This one is saying if you put a lot of ingredients in a soup, then the taste of the soup would be made by those ingredients. This one says, if you put these ingredients in the soup, something magical happens and the third realm opens, and when you taste it, your qualia will be exploded with delight. I'm obviously exaggerating to make it look bad. Minds emerge from stuff. How does it beat the interaction problem? Because it also says that the mind cannot interact. Mind can't interact, right, with body. So the mind isn't doing anything to the body. It doesn't create energy out of thin air to control the body. The mind doesn't control the body. The body is what makes the mind. If you think you have a decision, you make a decision in order to like move your hand. No, it is just you. You doing what you do. You doing hand moving thing. Like, it's kind of like what functionalism says. Everything is reduced to your, like, primal behavior, your instincts, right? You decide to move your hand because because your brain thinks it is right to do, not your mind, right? Your mind just makes up an excuse. I heard this. Some people are blind, right? And they say, no, yeah, I can see. They lie and say that, yeah, I can actually see, right? But then when, like, proven wrong, like, all right, if you're blind, can you go get me something? Yeah, okay. And then they just can't see, can they? I'm using the wrong example, aren't I? I am. Some people forget, have, like, a weird dementia. But instead of, like, accepting that they forget, they lie and give an excuse, right? No, not forget. Some people don't have an arm, right? Imagine I don't have my left arm, right? And I say, yeah, no, I do have my left arm. All right, then prove it. Move your arm. Why didn't you move your arm? Oh, I was just... And then they make up an excuse, something like, oh, I just didn't want to move it. Like, my arms are pretty tired today, right? Instead of admitting that they don't actually have an arm because their brain is tricking them into not having an arm. And the mind just makes up excuses. And it's not because they want to lie. It's that the mind so strongly believes in something that it makes you think that's the reality, right? And, like, your mind makes up an excuse. When you think you have a decision through property dualism, it's just your brain doing a logical thing, doing what the brain logically wants to do. Some people are stupid, their logical systems are flawed, right? But then your brain would make up, like, what do you call it? An excuse onto why you wanted to do it. I drank this water because I like this specific brand of water. No, you drank this water because your body thought you were thirsty. Not a good example, but whatever, right? Also another example for that brain making up stuff is when you're in, like, those chambers, those, like, sensory deprivation rooms where you have, like, salt bath, you just float, and then it's a specific temperature that matches your body's temperature so that you don't feel anything, you can't see anything, you can't smell anything, you can't taste anything, you can't hear anything. You just start hearing things, you start seeing things, right? You get hallucinations from sensory deprivation. And this is just your mind making stuff up because it's essential for your mind to make stuff up. Genuinely no reason at all, I guess, right? This is kind of like the sort of evidence that a property dualist would talk about, right? What's that? What? Oh my god. Oh, I just don't have it. Remember when I said philosophical zombies? Yep. Okay. Idealism. Talking about substance dualism, or, like, dualism in general, right? You think that there's this other minds problem. If the mind and the body are separate, then how would you know that the other person has a mind? How would you know they're just not a philosophical zombie? Ooh. If you genuinely believe this, it would be solipsism. Idealism. Oh, what is idealism? Idealism thinks that no such thing as physical, only mental. Right, solipsism, you think, only... Solipsism just is I'm the main character. everyone else is NPCs. Everyone else is a philosophical zombie. Only I am the conscious. Only I am the first ever conscious person. I remember being a solipsist when I was, 6, and I low-key just crashed out, like, at home, because some existential thingy. Solipsism is just so fingled. Why? Because it's unfalsifiable. Did I talk about this for like last Judaism and the Boltzmann brain, that it's unfalsifiable? When something is unfalsifiable, that means you can't prove it wrong, right? Or, like, I've had, like, a talk with my, like, an argument with my, like, the guy I sit next to in religion class, Bun's class, by the way, and he said, and I said, oh, you're a Christian, right? Convince me. And he said, okay, prove that there isn't a God, right? No, you prove to me there is a God. Nope, you prove to me there isn't. Unfalsifiable claim, right? That just because something is unfalsifiable doesn't mean it's any more true, right? There is something called Occam's razor. Occam's razor claims that in order for an argument to be, the more assumptions an argument has, the less plausibility it should be granted, right? Because, yeah, you could literally say anything that's unfalsifiable. I think the entire world is moved by invisible forces called invisible tiny little angels, right? Every single piece of movement are moved by invisible tiny angels, and they're in a shape of and they are particles, and they have their own mind. Blah 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 blah. Speaking about my little conspiracies, and and nobody can prove it wrong. Doesn't mean it's right. I didn't need to spend all that time doing that. Solipsism is not very good because it's unfalsifiable. So it's just unlikely. Unlikely compared to these two, I guess. Right? So let's do with idealism. Idealism, fuck me. There's metaphysical idealism, which says everything is fundamentally mind. And there's analytical. Everything is everything is one universal consciousness. Damn. Alright, so which one's more likely? That everything's fundamentally mind, or everything is just one universal consciousness? I don't know. Metaphysical. Wait a second. Everything is fundamentally mind. Everything is fundamentally conscious. Is that not the same? No. Conscious and mind are different. Mind is complex. Mind is you think. Mind, you get to think. The only reason panpsychism is plausible is because I said all of that these tiny bits of consciousness cannot think, cannot feel, do not have the capability to feel, cannot remember being blah 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 blah. That's why it's plausible for everything to be made of consciousness. It's not plausible for everything to be made out of mind. First of all, the ethical implications. If all of this is like billions of minds, if I do this, if I just kind of like bash it a bit, break it, right? Do those minds deserve rights? I don't know, right? Everything shouldn't be fundamentally mind. Anyways, what? No, I'm not done. Mind. How could that work? How could a mind be fundamental? A mind has a lot of complex things. Are you talking about what is literally what is a mind, right? If a mind isn't conscious, what is it? You get to think. A mind is something you think. Something ipsity. I hate ipsity. Did I do this? Did I do this already? I hate ipsity as a word because something self. Oh, just kill me now. What am I on about? Let's just cross that out. It's just not plausible, is it? Yeah, I didn't give a good explanation to why it isn't plausible, but just look at it, mate. Right? The only reason panpsychism was plausible, and these are literally almost identical, is because of the concept. Yeah, I already said all this. I genuinely whatever. Analytical idealism. Everything is under one universal consciousness. Okay. If everything is one universal consciousness, how am I conscious and everything, and how is everything not a hive mind? Not a hive mind. How is everything not just one consciousness? How do I have consciousness and someone else would have their own consciousness? Well, the main guy, he's still alive, by the way. Weird. But he says that I should turn. He says that the mind is splitting, disassociating into different identities, different, what's the word? I can get this. Different alters, right? This guy says that the mind is, like, when you have, like, dissociative personality disorder, that's his main go-to example, right? Dissociative personality disorder. I should really explain what that is trying to say first, honestly. How could everything be consciousness? Are you genuinely saying that nothing is material? This thing says that the material world exists. This one says that the material world is just fake. It's just made out of the one universal consciousness, right? Basically, he's saying, imagine a map. The map is how you see. The map is how you visualize the mountains or whatever, right? You look at a mountain and you look at your map. The map is mapped out to be that mountain. It's like, that is 2 kilometers, that is 2 kilometers, right? Is the mountain representative of the map, or the map representative of the mountain? The map is representative to the mountain, right? And what he's trying to say is the mountain is consciousness, and the material stuff that you think exists is the map. Okay? What's here? Do I have anything in here? No, I do not. Oh, yes, I do, actually. Brain activity. Mental states. The mental states cause brain activity. The brain activity does not cause the mental stuff to happen. The brain is just a visualization of your mental state. So when you do an MRI scan, you're not seeing what causes the mind. You're seeing a representation of what the mind is. I said that a bit quick. Just replay the video if you want to figure it out. Okay? I hate idealism because of how complex it is. Something panpsychism nerd. Anyways, dissociative person disorder. He talks about this blind woman, the guy, Bernardo Castrikov. I don't know, just search up analytic idealism and the guy will just pop up. He has glasses and has grey hair. I don't want to guess his ethnicity, but anyways, so this is dissociative personality disorder. Different, what you call these different personalities are different. When was that paused? Fuck me. Whatever. What causes the for like different identities? Because I'm conscious. I'm an individual. Something ipsity. That guy's an individual. If everything's under a universal consciousness, why are we not connected? Because both of us are just alters of that one universal consciousness. Alters from the dissociative personality disorder. Dissociative personality disorder is just a example. I'm not saying the whole universe has a dissociative personality disorder. He says this example. This one woman who is blind, and she is able something, my name is Abel. She is able to, she is blind, right? And she's able to regain her sight in 8 out of her 10 personalities, which are called alters, right? So scientists check this. She checks their brain activity, right? And then they see that the visual part of their brain turns off every time their blind alter comes on. Which, you can't fake this. You can't fake being blind. Your brain genuinely can't fake this being blind because of your little personality disorder. This is, he says, if something like this could happen, the brain is just, this shows that the brain activity is just a representation of the mental. The brain doesn't cause the mental causes the brain. And because dissociative personality disorder is a mental thing, that causes the brain to look different. The brain activity to look different in the MRI machine. And they say in the universe, different people are different alters of that one single consciousness. That's how we feel that we are individual. That's how we feel that we are different. When we live, we are our individuals, and when we die, we reunite with that one single consciousness. Damn. Alright. So we can tell that analytic idealism is pretty plausible. It has its own evidence with that blind woman and stuff. Blind woman evidence is genuinely unheard of. Anyways, alright. Should I? Oh, whatever. Like that. Our main three, the top fighters out of all of these three main theories about mind, philosophy of mind. Alright? We can already get rid of property dualism. Why? Because... What do you mean the mind can't interact with the body? You know what? No. You're right. The mind could... Yeah, I guess that works. Wait a second. Evolution. I think that this is one of the hardest questions. why did we evolve consciousness, right? What's the point? What's the point in us having consciousness? Because it just doesn't seem, oh fucking hell, it just doesn't seem very useful. Right? It doesn't do anything. It, like, if we, according to blind sight, we can operate fully on objective reality instead of just subjective reality. So what's the point in having consciousness at all? How is this evolutionary benefited? Why would evolution go out of its way to make something that's just pointless? And we know it's pointless because you don't need consciousness to operate in a good level, right? They got it's kind of like blind sight, but they got a monkey instead, right? They got this monkey to, like, know. The monkey is blind, but is Qualia blind? But they can, like, they know now. They can, like, pathfind like a fucking AI. That's about it. Because of evolution, property dualism, saying that mind emerges from stuff, but the mind doesn't control the body, that means the mind is irrelevant. The mind is just there for no reason. And according to evolution, nothing should be there for no reason. Therefore, property dualism is not plausible. Not logically, not plausible, not logically good. Do I have anything here? Extra sheet, by the way. Yep. Oh, by the way, the word for property dualism that the brain create, like, stuff creates mind, is epiphenomenalism, which is how the mind emerges from the little things. These, you say, oh, so why don't these suffer through the evolutionary thing? Well, what's the point of consciousness when you evolve? If everything is fundamentally conscious, it is impossible to not have something conscious. So this survives the evolution thing. Does this survive the evolution thing? Minds work better and more cohesively in disassociated individuals. Okay, so the universe decided to create alters to split its consciousness because of evolution, to make it so that because that is just more, what do you call it, because minds work better as small individuals. Wow, that evolution actually strengthened analytical idealism by giving it a reason for alters to actually happen. Anyways, onto plausibility. Plausibility basically means vibes. Fingal me retarded. Vibes. Which one has the better vibes? Analytical idealism or panpsychism, right? Which one instinctually or there was a word for this. Starts with I don't know. Which one feels like it's more plausible? I personally think panpsychism is the most plausible compared to analytical idealism. The Bernardo guy, who does analytical idealism, when he critiques panpsychism, the first thing he critiqued was, well, obviously panpsychism isn't true because particles aren't real. What? Panpsychism says every, consciousness is fundamental and particles are just consciousness itself. But particles aren't real, Particles, just according to our current physics model, particles are just like a placeholder for people to see what it is like for for like the smallest thing to happen. There's no such thing as a particle. Particles are just made up for like to like explain this phenomenon. Okay, bro. So yeah, panpsychism is. But what if you refer to the interviewer, Alex O'Connor, replies, but what if particles were just. What if the panpsychism was actually talking about that phenomenon instead of particles? And just like how anyone would use the term particles, it is just using it out of like representation, like you said. No, because if you do that, you're just playing word games. You're playing word games, and if you don't stick with a proper definition, then you are just not very. This unfaithful way to think philosophically. This guy just okay. That first of all, we can see why that's not a very good point, is it? That's just not a very good point because. Yeah, anyone who uses the word particle obviously uses it out of convenience, right? Panpsychism isn't literally talking about particles because panpsychism has to agree with particle theory, and if particle were to be false, particle theory were to be just some kind of visual representation, string theory were to be just some kind of representation, like Bernardo said, then panpsychism is genuinely just talking about the phenomenon. If you treat panpsychism as if it was just talking about that phenomenon, you can't really see anything wrong with it, really. I don't think, personally. It beat the combination problem, which is just everything against materialism. Can this be the combination problem? I guess. With alters. But this also denies all of materialism. No, all of the material world. Everything. This is just a map of like the mental states. Everything physical that I see is just fake. Everything that looks material is just made to be that way in order to represent like the mental states that is in. This rag has a rag mental state. And it looks like a rag because that's how it represents that mental state. Now, obviously both of these are like pretty sound in logic. At the end of the day, plausibility, I've got to give it to panpsychism because I'm not believing all of that the material world doesn't actually exist thing. Okay? In conclusion, panpsychism is the GOAT. Right now, I don't have any more notes because I've talked about everything. And I could talk more if I go into the morality of consciousness, but should I? What time is it? 2:28. No. 2 hours and... Okay, maybe not. 5% battery remaining. Do I dare talk about morality? No. No, I think it'll be silly.